I'm Cath. Welcome to my channel made by Cath Craft. Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of my midweek sewing chat. So it's really nice to be back on for another week, and I've got a few different things to share with you in this video. I've got some new fabrics that arrived late last week, which I'm really looking forward to sharing and talking a little bit about what my plans for them might be. I've also got a little alteration project that I've been doing this week. It's one I've been wanting to do for a while, so it was nice to finally get that sorted. I'm going to share with you what I've been up to on that front. And I've got a couple of other sewing related things to share too, as well as a bit of progress on my latest knitting project. And I've also got a tutorial, which I'm going to put at the end of the video as well. So yeah, a few different things to share, but as usual, I'll start this video off with what I'm wearing today. And today's a really nice sunny day here actually. We had nice weather at the weekend, which was great because my son had his Cubs dragon boating regatta yesterday, which was really nice to sit by the river and enjoy that and have it not rain on us. And today's another lovely sunny day. So I've got on a dress, and this is a dress I made last year. But I think I mentioned in one of my earlier videos earlier this year, I hadn't worn it a lot because it's just a bit of a different style to what I usually wear. So I'm really trying to get it out and wear it this summer, and I'm really enjoying wearing it actually. So I'm glad that I've been making the effort to get it on and try a slightly different style because I am enjoying it. And you might be able to recognise the pattern just in the top bit because it's quite a popular indie pattern. It's this one here, which is the Shelby Dress and Romper by True Bias. It's a really pretty 90s style dress and romper pattern. I'll show you the line drawing so you can see a bit more what it looks like, although you might be familiar with this one because it is quite a popular one. It's a princess seam dress and romper, so it's got the sort of princess seams on the front and the back. And it's got this V-neck and a button down front. There's two different sleeve options, a sort of a short sleeve and then a cap sleeve. And then you can either make it as a sort of shorter mini dress or sort of play suit style length, or you can make it as a maxi dress or sort of full length romper suit. And it's got little waist ties at the back to bring in the waist a little bit. So it's quite a pretty one, and I haven't got a lot of fully princess seamed style dresses. I'm often one for a dress with a gathered skirt, so it's a bit different, as I said, a bit out of my comfort zone, but I'm really enjoying wearing it. I mentioned the sizing on this one. It's not got the biggest size range ever. A lot of True Bias patterns are made in two size range, so I think one is 0 to 18 and then there's a 14 to 30 range too, but this one at the moment is only available in the 0 to 18 range, so it goes up to the largest size, a chest of 44.5 inches. And I find True Bias patterns often come up a little bit large on me, so I've made on this one the size 0, which is designed for a chest of 32 inches, waist of 26 inches and hips of 34 inches. And I am chest 32, waist 26 and then hips 36. With this one there's loads and loads of room in the skirt. I'll stand up so you can see. So the kind of princess seam pieces really flare out at the bottom, so I knew I wouldn't need to grade it on the hips, and that actually the 34-inch hip is still fine on my 36-inch hips. But I have found with this one I've had to adjust a little bit around the bodice because I did find it came up a little bit baggy around my chest and waist area. So, I think with princess seams it's quite nice because you can quite easily adjust them, but just by taking them in the places you want to take them in. So I had a little bit of a play with my original version of this and did take in the seams a little bit. This is my second version I've made, and I've now got the fits I think fairly nailed in it. But yeah, this is the second version of the Shelby dress I made. I've made only the dress, I've not made the romper, just because I think it's easier to, use the bathroom and that sort of thing with a dress. It makes that a bit easier than having a romper, so purely practical, and I do like a dress as well. But this version I made in this really pretty viscose fabric. It came from Guthrie Garney, I think it was last year. I don't think it's still in stock. It's really pretty though. I like the sort of red base, and it's got these little daisies on it, which I think are quite cute. I do like a ditzy floral print, and I've got little white buttons to tie in with the little white flowers on the dress. And other than just sort of tweaking the bodice to make it fit me a little bit better around the areas where it came up a bit loose, the other adjustment I made to this one was to lengthen the skirt a bit. I think I lengthened it by 1.5 inches because I do find on this pattern the skirt does come up quite short. I think I held the pattern pieces up to me when I first made it, and I thought, oh, that's going to come up a little bit too short, so I'm glad I lengthened it. Even now it is a bit on the short side, and I'll put a picture up so you can see what it does look like on. That's how I'm wearing it today with a pair of sandals. But yeah, it's on the short side, so I'm definitely glad I lengthened it a little bit. And I am 5'6" for reference, in case you're thinking of making it, I want to have an idea of where it might sit. And I've got the waist ties added on the back. I'll just turn around so you can see them. I think they do cinch in the Shelby around the waist really nicely. Hopefully you could see them okay. But it's a really nice comfy one to wear actually, and in the viscose the skirt is really lovely and swishy, so I'm really enjoying wearing this one this summer, and I'm glad I'm giving a different style of dress a go. And the instructions on True Bias patterns I always find are really good. They're really clear and concise, and yeah, really take you through the process of making the dress really nicely, so it is a really nice one to sew, this one. So that's what I'm wearing today. So I thought I'd move on now to sharing with you my new fabrics that arrived with me late last week, which I'm really excited about. I've got 3 new fabrics to share, and you might have seen a sneak peek of these fabrics if you follow me on Instagram, because I posted them on my Instagram stories last Friday. They all came from Rainbow Fabrics, who you probably know already. They have an online shop which I'll link below, and they're based in London, and they sell a lot of dead stock fabrics, a lot of really pretty printed viscose dead stock fabrics, but they also sell other types of fabric too. Their website is always worth a browse. I always enjoy having a little look on there. And they very kindly gifted me 3 fabrics. On Friday they had their new summer viscose collection launching, which is a really pretty collection of lots of lovely summery printed viscose fabrics. They're really nice quality. And I was able to choose 3 fabrics from their website, from the new collection or their older collections, and I chose 2 of their new summer viscose collection fabrics, as well as 1 viscose there's an older fabric on their website. So it's really fun having a look actually and picking out the prints I wanted. And I've got them all here to share with you. And the first fabric is one of their new collection fabrics. I really love this one. It's this really pretty green fabric, which is a colour historically I haven't gone for so much, but I'm kind of finding myself a new love for green. I do actually like a green a lot these days. So as you can see, it's got a lovely dark green base with this sort of large scale sort of tropical leaf print on, in lighter greens and sort of bluey colours, and then there's some reds and whites in there too. So a really pretty combination of colours, and I think it's a really lovely summery print. And it's a lovely soft drapey viscose too. You can see the drape there, a nice and opaque. So I think it'll be perfect for a dress of some sort. I've got 2.5 metres of this, and I would really love to turn it into a maxi dress of some sort. I'm not sure which one yet. I need to have a little look through my pattern collection and see if I've got one that I think will be just a perfect match to this fabric. But yeah, I think it's a really pretty one, and I hope I'll be able to sew this one up sooner rather than later, so I can enjoy it with the summery weather while we're having it at the moment. So I need to get in the wash actually and pre-wash it so it's ready to cut out as soon as I decide which pattern I'd like to use. But it's a really nice one. If you can think of a particular maxi dress pattern you think might work well with this one, I would love to know. But yeah, it's really lovely, that one. And then the other fabric that I got from their new summer viscose collection is this really soft viscose. This one's a lovely soft one. This one's not quite as summery a print as this tropical green print, but I just really like the kind of fabric. This is it here. So it's kind of like a ditzy floral print, and as I mentioned, I do like a ditzy floral print. This one's got a black base and then white flowers on. And I thought it was a really nice combination. I like the sort of size of the print, and again, it's really lovely and soft and drapey. So I think I'd like to turn this one into something for summer too. I did have in mind a pattern I might like to use with it when I originally sort of chose the fabric. I was thinking of using this pattern here, the Tilly and the Buttons Lotta dress, which is a really lovely sort of blousey style dress, and you can make a short sleeve version, which is what I thought I might do. I'll show you the line drawings here. It's kind of this blousey dress with grown on sleeves and quite a simple shape, and it's got an elasticated waistband and quite a flouncy skirt. And I thought this fabric would look quite cute as a sort of summery Lotta dress. But now it's arrived, I'm just not sure. I've got a few different ideas going around in my head for this one, so I think what I'm going to do is get it in for the pre-wash and have a couple of days of thinking before I decide to cut into it for any particular pattern. So but I really like the kind of black and white kind of monochromatic print. I think it's a nice one, and it'll make a dress that'll hopefully be one I'll be able to wear for years to come, because it's one of a kind of classic print, I guess. So that's the second fabric I got, and I got 2.5 metres of that one as well. So there should be plenty for whatever dress I do decide to make with this, or whatever I decide to make. I'm not 100% sure on a dress. I think something that is like a top and bottom combination of some sort, maybe a play suit otherwise. But yeah, that's what I'm planning to make. Something summery again, hopefully. And the final fabric I got from the Rainbow Fabrics website is one from their older collection. And it's one that I just thought was really cute and I couldn't resist. And this one I think is more of a wintry fabric, so it's probably one I'll hold off sewing until it gets a bit colder here, because I have an idea of what I might like to make. But yeah, it's another viscose, like I said. And this one is another black base viscose, and it's got this really cute print on with hearts and stars in pink, which I thought was really sweet. As you can see, there's a little bit of, you can see a little bit, it's a little bit sheer here, but I think it'll be fine for a wintry dress, which is what I'd like to make, to be able to wear without a slip underneath if I wore it with a pair of black tights, which is what I probably plan to do. It's got a lovely drape to it again, this one, but the fabric is slightly different to the first two viscoses. It's got a bit more of a sheen to it, as you might be able to see on the camera. Yeah, it's a bit more of a sheen to it. The other two are a bit more of a flat, sort of matte woven viscose. And yeah, this one's got a bit more of a sheen to it, but again, a lovely drape to it. And what I think I might like to make, although I might have changed my mind by the time it gets to the point of sewing it, but what I think I have in mind is to use this pattern here, the Friday Pattern Code Davenport dress, because I think this fabric will make a really cute Davenport dress. You've seen this pattern before, I'm sure I've definitely talked about it before, but it's a really pretty dress design for woven fabrics with lots of lovely little features. It's got a sort of elasticated channel waist here, or a drawstring waist, sorry, not elasticated channel waist. It's got a drawstring waist, a lovely little ruffle on the skirt. It's got these little shoulder ruffles too. It's got a way of gathering at the neck with this interesting elasticated neck that means it's really easy to get on and off. And it's got these cute sleeves with a little ruffle at the bottom that I've always taken in a bit actually because they're quite more voluminous than this photo shows, I think. So it's quite a pretty flouncy dress, and I've made a long sleeve version for winter already, which I really enjoy wearing. So I thought this would make another nice long sleeve version for winter. That's my current plan with it, but as I mentioned, I'm not planning on sewing that up quite yet. So my plans may change by the time I get to winter, but yeah, I thought it was quite a cute one with a sort of pink star and heart print on it. So those are my 3 new fabrics that I was very kindly gifted by Rainbow Fabrics. And I'm really looking forward to firming up my sewing plans for those 3 and then hopefully getting them sewn up either for this summer or maybe later in the year for winter. And I thought I'd mention I have a discount code to pass on to you that Rainbow Fabrics gave me for 20% off if you do fancy having a browse on their website and making a purchase. And the discount code is Cath20. It's not an affiliate code, so I don't get any commission on any sales or anything, but Rainbow Fabrics gave it to me to pass on. And I guess 20% off is always nice. And they do have some really pretty summer viscoses in their new collection, so it's definitely worth a browse. I think this one here, the tropical print, is already out of stock on the website. It was obviously really popular and sold out at the weekend. But this sort of monochromatic floral print is still in stock at the moment, as is this cute sort of hearts and stars print as well. And they do have some other lovely prints on there too. So the next thing I wanted to share in this video was a little alteration project that I've done this week. And it's to alter a garment that I've been wanting to adjust for quite a while. It's actually quite a wintry garment, so I haven't worn it for a few months now since winter. But it's been on the back of my mind that I need to do something about it because the fit wasn't quite right. And the pattern that I was altering is this one here, which is the moss skirt pattern by Grainline Studio. And I really like this pattern. It's one of the earliest skirts I made. I remember struggling quite a lot with my original version and putting the fly front in because I was quite new to sewing and I found it all quite tricky. Although the Grainline instructions are really good and held my hand through it, it was a little bit out of my comfort zone. But it's a really nice, sort of quite simple skirt pattern that's designed for kind of, I guess, bottom weight fabrics. I think it will make a great denim skirt, but I've never made it in denim. It's got a fly front zipper, a waist that just falls, I think it just sits just slightly below your natural waist. It's got these slash pockets, it's got yoke at the back, and you can make it either as a mini skirt or a slightly longer skirt with this pan lad at the bottom. So it's a really nice pattern. I've made a couple of versions. I made my original version, which I wore to death until it fell apart. Then I remade and I tweaked the sizing a bit, but something still wasn't quite right on it. I'll show you my skirt. This is it here. I made it in this really nice royal blue corduroy fabric. It's quite a chunky corduroy. I'll hold it up so you can see. And when I wore it, I always found at the back, it was wrinkling a little bit here. It was like there was almost too much fabric at the back. And I do have a bit of a sway back, and I think that was causing the problem. I'll put up a picture. I took a picture so you can see the problem area and the wrinkling. And it's just one of those things. I think when I made my first version and then originally wore it, I didn't really notice it. But the more I sew, the more I notice little things that don't feel right on the fit front. And I guess I also feel more confident about how to sort of deal with them and make them fit better. So I thought I'd sit down, have a bit of a head scratch and figure out how I can get that fabric not to wrinkle there and how I can maybe adjust it a little bit. So yeah, I did that this week. So basically what I decided to do was unpick the waistband, because you can see the waistband here. It's slip stitched on the inside, so it's quite easy to unpick, so I just slip stitched that along here. And then what I did was, you can see at the back, it's hard to see with this fabric, it's got a yoke here. I basically decided to cut the fabric a bit lower to take out a bit of the yoke, because I could see there's a bit of fabric pooling at the back there and creating that crinkle effect. So I just cut the yoke out and took it down a little bit lower, just, because it was riding up a bit high and getting crinkly there. I then also took it in a little bit down this centre seam here. Again, I'll hold it up so you can see. There's a centre seam that runs down the back, just because I thought that would bring it in a little bit, because the excess fabric is obviously coming from it being a bit too much fabric there and a bit too much fabric both ways. So I brought it in a little bit along this bit to sort of pull in a bit along my sway back. And then I basically re-sewed it all in place, having taken a bit out the middle and a bit out the front back here. So it's quite a simple adjustment. I just I basically trimmed a bit off and pinned it back together again, and then just played with it and took enough off until it got to a better fit. Luckily, the waistband already fit me quite well because it is a second version I've made, so I got the waistband fit just right. So it's just a matter of bringing in these bits here. And when I cut down a little bit, it did create a bit more length, so it was quite easy then to take in a bit in the middle and then fit the waistband at the top, if that makes sense. So I'll put a picture up now so you can see what it looks like now. And you can see the fit is a lot better and there isn't that sort of fabric pooling or wrinkling at the back. So I was really pleased. I actually just got this skirt and had a little bit of a play with it. I do often feel nervous when I do start unpicking things that I've sewn in case it all goes wrong and I end up with a non-wearable garment at the end. But yeah, I was really pleased to have done that. And as you can see here, it's got a really nice sort of curve here at the sway back, just to pull in to sort of fit my sway back a bit better. And I also went on then to make the same adjustment on my second version of the grain line moss skirt. This is my second version. Again, I made it in a corduroy fabric. I should mention the first corduroy came from Minerva, and I think they still stock this corduroy range, so I'll link it down below. And this is a royal blue colourway, as you can see. I think it might have been 8 wale corduroy. This corduroy came from Self-Made. I don't think it's still in stock anymore. It's a really nice petrol colour. Really pretty and again quite chunky. And again, I made the exact same adjustment. So I scooped out some of the fabric here. So you can see now the yoke doesn't sit as high as it would have done before, and I pulled it in a bit in the middle. And again, it's not wrinkling at the back and it doesn't sit quite as high. It feels like a better place it sits now. So yeah, it was really nice to make those two adjustments to those two skirts. I won't be wearing them anytime soon because the weather's definitely too warm for quite a cosy corduroy skirt at the moment. But it's nice to know they're ready to go for my winter wardrobe, and that when I wear them this year, I won't feel a bit self-conscious of the wrinkling of the fabric at the back. The next thing I wanted to talk about in this video that I've been up to over the last week or so on the sewing front is to launch a new sewing challenge over on Instagram, which I'm really, really excited about. And hopefully you've heard about it already. Either over on Instagram, you'll have seen all the details there. And I also did a video last weekend talking about the challenge and also sharing a garment I'd made as inspiration for the challenge too. But I thought I'd mention it in this video too, in case you haven't heard of it yet. It is the Sew Mashup Challenge, and I'm co-hosting it with Sally, who is Secret Life for Seamstress, and I'll link her YouTube and Instagram accounts down below. And we decided to get together to launch the Sew Mashup Challenge, and I'll put up the details so you can see all the information for it. Basically, the challenge is to sew a brand new garment using a mashup of 2 different sewing patterns. So we're hoping people will get really creative about putting 2 different patterns together. You need to sew your garment up and then post it onto Instagram in July using the hashtag SewMashup and tagging Sally and myself. And then at the end of July, we'll put all of the entries into a hat and we'll pull out some winners. So they'll be drawn at random, and we've got lots of really cool prizes for the challenge too. But I won't talk about the challenge in too much detail here because I have done a separate video, like I mentioned, where I go through it all in a bit more detail and share with you the sponsors and that sort of thing. But I thought I'd pop up a little picture of the dress I made for the challenge. And again, in my video I posted at the weekend, I'm talking all about how I put 2 patterns together to create this dress. And you'll have seen the fabric last week, and here is the dress. I use this really lovely gingham fabric to create a dress by combining the plum dress pattern by Cocoa Crafts and the estuary skirt by Sew Liberated. And it was a lot of fun to make that garment. I took my time over it. I made a toile, and I talk all about the toile and the garment and everything in that video. But I thought I'd just mention it here as well in case you haven't checked that video out. We'd love as many people to get involved in the challenge as possible. I'm hoping it'll be a lot of fun, give everyone lots of inspiration for different mashups. I do love a mashup because I think it's a great way of creating something new by using patterns you already have. So yeah, please do get involved. Sally and I are really excited for the challenge. We can't wait to see all the entries. So that is the Sew Mashup Challenge, and I'm really looking forward to this month. I can't wait to see all the entries coming in. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then also in this video, like I mentioned at the beginning, I've got a sewing tutorial to share, which I'm going to put at the end. But before I include that, there's one other item I wanted to share with you, and that is how I'm getting on with my latest knitting project. And if you saw my last week's video, you'll know that I treated myself to a new knitting kit while it was on special offer. And it's a kit by We Are Knitters, and it's this one here. It is their Saturday top. And it's a really pretty cami top pattern with this sort of deep V-neck and strappy straps and this lovely sort of lacy stitch to it. So I thought it'd be a lot of fun to give it a go. And it's knitted up in their Pima cotton yarn called the Cotton. So I've got the yarn here. I decided to go for the black colourway. So here is my yarn, and it's knitting up really nicely so far. Actually, I do like knitting with cotton yarn. I find it's really clean, it's not fluffy, it kind of it comes together really nicely and you can really see the stitches. So yeah, that's the cotton yarn I'm using, and I've really enjoyed getting started on the pattern. I find it's knitting up quite quickly. I've started on the front, and I'm using their instructions, which is this little grid. It's actually my first time using a grid to knit rather than sort of actually written instructions. I'm quite surprised I haven't done it before actually, because I've seen quite a few patterns that do use this style of instruction where each of the squares has a little symbol on it. And I was always a bit daunted maybe by trying it. I don't know why, it was just a different way I guess of knitting than I'm used to. But actually it's been quite a lot of fun. I'm finding it quite easy to follow the pattern, and I'm really getting familiar with what all the little symbols mean, and now I've got into my flow with it, which I'm enjoying. So here is my knitting as it's coming on so far. So you can see it's really coming out with these cute lacy bit piece on it. It's got a nice little sort of narrow rib stitch at the bottom, and I'm just knitting up. And I think I'm about sort of 2/3 of the way up before I get to the point where I need to start bringing it in to make it with sort of the strappy bits. I think I might lengthen the pattern slightly, because at the moment it's looking like it might come up a bit short on me. So if I need to lengthen it, I might have to do 2 repetitions of these lacy stitches. Otherwise I'll end up on finishing, if I just do one, I'll end up finishing on a wider one, and it won't kind of jump in nicely to this next line up. So I think I have to do these 2 lots of rows again to make it a bit longer, but that might end up as quite a nice length. But I'm just going to carry on knitting and see how it goes. So yeah, I'm enjoying it actually. The one mistake I did make at the beginning was I miscounted how many stitches you start with, and I started with 80 instead of 79, which is what you need for the size I'm doing. So I had to unpick, so I only realised I'd done it wrong after a few rows. But it was nice and easy to unpick because it's a cotton yarn. It doesn't get kind of tangled together too much, I find, so it does unpick quite cleanly, so that's good. So if I decide the length is wrong and I need to go back and maybe only increase by 1 lot of the lacy stitches, then it shouldn't be too tricky to unpick. But I'm just enjoying picking it up and knitting a few rows every evening. I do think it's quite a pretty stitch and it'll look quite nice when it's finished, hopefully. So that is my knitting project that I'm working on at the moment. So the last thing I wanted to share in this video was a little tutorial video which I made this week. Last week, in my last week's midweek chat video, I shared a t-shirt I'd made using the Stellantis pattern by French Navy, and I was showing how I top stitched the neckline down and also finished the hem, both using the twin needle on my sewing machine, which I really like to do because I think it gives a really nice finish when you're sewing up stretch fabrics. And someone got in touch in the comments and said, is there any chance I could do a little video showing how I use my twin needle, because they were struggling to get theirs to give the right finish on their machine. So I thought I can do that video quite easily, so I did that this week. So I've done a little video talking about how I get my machine set up for a twin needle. So I'm hoping it'll be helpful in case you have maybe thought about using a twin needle but haven't used one yet, or you have used it and it isn't coming out quite right in terms of the finish. I find it quite daunting before I used mine for the first time, but now I'm fairly comfortable with it and I've got the settings I like and I find it's quite straightforward to use. So I'm going to pop that video in now and hopefully you'll find it helpful, and I'll see you again afterwards. In this video I'm going to share how to get a sewing machine all set up and ready to sew with a twin needle. And I find a twin needle a really useful tool to use in sewing a handmade wardrobe because it gives a really great finish to handmade garments. I've got a sweatshirt here that I used a twin needle on for the neckline. As you can see, I top stitched the neckband down around here using a twin needle, and it gives a really clean and professional looking finish. So it's definitely worth learning how to use a twin needle on your machine, and it is actually quite straightforward. Once you've done it a couple of times, it's really simple, and it definitely is easier than I thought it would be before I gave it a go for the first time. So I'm going to show you how to thread the machine for a twin needle, but first of all I'll talk you through the tools you need to sew with a twin needle. And the first thing you need is 2 lots of thread for the top of your machine, 1 to thread through each of the 2 needles. And I've got 2 thread spools here that are both in a black colourway, so I can use those 2. But if you only have 1 thread spool available in the colour you want, what you can do is transfer some of that thread onto a bobbin and use the bobbin as your second thread for the top of the machine. So you've got 2 threads to the top of the machine, and you also need a bobbin threaded with the colour you want to use too, to put into the bottom of the machine, and feed through on the bottom to finish the stitch. You also need something to hold the second thread in place on the top of your machine. And this is a tool that usually comes with your sewing machine. Here's mine. My second thread on top will go on this, and I'll show you where in a moment. You then need the actual twin needle itself. And when I'm sewing with jersey fabrics like this sweatshirt, I use this needle here. It is a Schmetz stretch twin needle, and I find it works really well. And you also need a tool to be able to change the needle over to insert your twin needle into the machine. So those are all the tools you need, and I'm going to turn the camera now and show you how I get it all threaded up. So I'm now going to show you how I go about threading my sewing machine to get it ready for using the twin needle. And the first thing I do is pop the bobbin in, and I'm just going to pop the bobbin in just as I would normally for any other project. There's nothing different needed for when you're sewing with a twin needle. So I've got the bobbin in, and I'm going to put the little bobbin cover on here. Then I'm going to take off the foot, just to make it really easy to take out the single needle that I was using on my last project. So I've got my single needle out there, and now I'm going to put my twin needle in, and I'm going to put that in just as I would do any other needle, just make sure it's nice and tightly held in place. And then put the foot back on. So the bottom's already on that end. Now I need to thread the top of the machine. So I'll show you that now. So now I'm going to show you how to get your two threads you'll be using on top of the machine all threaded through the machine and through the twin needles so you can get started on some twin needle stitching. And the first thing you need to do is take one of your threads and just thread it the way you would do the normal way on your normal existing thread holder at the top here. So take it through all the normal steps. The one thing you need to do though is when you get to the tension discs here, you need to make sure you know which side you've put this thread, because the second thread needs to go on the other side of the tension discs. So I'm taking this thread through the left hand side of the tension discs, and then I'm going to put this on here, just take it through the rest of the process for threading the machine and thread it through the first of the needles. And I'm just going to show you a close-up of what I mean by where to put the threads through the tension disc. So you need to make sure that one thread goes on each side of this silver disc here. So now I've got my first thread all threaded up through the machine and through the needle, and it's time to pop on my second thread, which I've got here. So for this one, I use this thread holder here that came with my machine, and I pop the thread on here, and then I follow the same process of threading just as I did for the first thread. But when I get to the tension disc here, I'm going to make sure this second thread goes through on the right side, so the opposite side to where my first thread went through. So I'm going to pop that through now, all through the same process, down the right side there, back up and round, and then I'm going to get that threaded through the second twin needle. So I've now got both of my twin needles threaded up here, and it doesn't matter which thread goes through which side of the twin needle. The most important thing is just that they each go through a different side of the tension disc here. And as you can see, the threads do look slightly tangly up here, but I don't find that to be a problem. As long as they're not knotted together or anything, I find they'll run smoothly once you get started. So I've got my machine turned on now, so I'm getting ready to sew with my twin needle. And sew with a twin needle, you need to use a straight stitch on your machine. So that is the number 1 stitch for my machine. And then you need to think about whether any other settings need to be adjusted. And I've had an experiment with my machine in the past to find out the best settings and what gives the best finish for when I'm sewing with a twin needle. And I've found that a stitch length of 3 gives the best finish for my machine. So I'm going to increase the stitch length to 3. But you might wish to have a play around on your machine to figure out what works best for your machine. I basically took a piece of jersey fabric and ran it through the machine on different stitch lengths and just adjusted the tension slightly too to compare. And I found that the standard tension of 4, which I've got up here, and a stitch length of 3 gave the best finish on my machine. And then when I get started on a new project that I'm going to be using a twin needle on, what I usually do is I use a piece of scrap fabric, the same fabric as I'm planning to use for the project, just to test out those settings and make sure it does give a good finish on that new fabric. So I'm going to show you now how I go about using a twin needle using a piece of jersey fabric. So now I've got the fabric ready to sew, and it's a loop back jersey fabric, and I'm going to have a go of sewing on the fold because I generally find I'm using the twin needle when I'm either top stitching down a couple of layers of fabric or I'm using a hem, so it's often a double layer, so that will hopefully reflect the finish quite well. So I'm just going to give it a go now by sewing it in a straight line. And you can't go backwards using a twin needle, but you can use a sort of finishing knot on your machine if your machine does tie off at the end of a line. So I'm just going to tie off now. And then I'll take that piece of fabric out and show you what it looks like. So here is my twin needle stitching. You can see the front there, and I'll turn it over, and there's the back too. And it's got a nice bit of stretch to it. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. So I hope you found that tutorial helpful, and I hope it might encourage you to have a go using a twin needle on your sewing machine if you haven't done so before. I think it's a really worthwhile skill to know because it gives such a nice finish to handmade garments, and it is pretty straightforward to use too. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial video and hopefully found it helpful too. I think twin needle stitching gives a really nice finish to jersey garments, so I do like to use it where I can, and I've got to the point now where I find it quite straightforward and quick to get my machine set up for it, which is really nice too. So that's the last thing I have to share in this video, so thank you very much for watching another episode of my midweek chat. As ever, if you've enjoyed this video, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. And also if you press the bell icon, you'll then be notified when my future videos come out. So hopefully back on Saturday for another video. But in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely week and yes, see you again soon. Thanks again for watching. Bye.